Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Nothing. Test 1 2. There we are. Well, it's about that time. Good morning. Glad you joined us this morning for our first Sunday morning auditorium class of July. It's good to see everybody. If you are joining us for the first time, I'll catch you up a little bit. We are walking through the life of David, and we have been going through this a number of weeks, wrapping up 2 Samuel 12, and as you know, we're coming to the end of David's sin and repercussions from that. The child has died. David has now gotten over his time of mourning and moved into, he goes and comforts Bathsheba, and then it gives us the very, very easily the writer gives us the idea that time has passed by telling us that then there was a baby. And so we know this is not like the next day, right? So there's time passes, and Solomon's born. Now, this is at the end. Joab is as we've noticed, one of the shrewdest guys in this whole thing. And if you pick it up in chapter 12, verse 26. Now Joab fought against Rabbah of the Ammonites and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah, moreover I have taken the city of waters. Now then, gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it, lest I take the city and it be called by my name. So David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it, and he took the crown of their king from his head. The weight of it was a talent of gold, and in it was a precious stone, and it was placed on David's head. And he brought out the spoil of the city, a very great amount, and he brought out the people who were in it and set them to labor with saws and iron picks and iron axes and made them toil at the brick kilns. And thus he did to all the cities of the Ammonites. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. Joab sends him a message now. While you've been playing house and messing up, I've been at war with the Ammonites, and I have finally taken this city. So you need to show up and claim the victory, or I'm going to claim the victory, and it'll be mine. And you can show up and be the king, and everybody say, look what David did, or you can sit home in the castle, and I'll claim all the victory. And that gets David motivated. That gets him moving. So then he comes out and finishes that up. And here we have David, who, as we talked about last time, has been living out of line. Remember, we talked about that last time? Instead of being aligned with God and with the Word of God like he has been for a good portion of his life, he is now outside the lines. He's in the weeds, he's, as we say. He is in the ditch. I mean, whatever metaphor you want to use, he's out of line. And that life, we know, is going to eventually reap what it sows. God has told him through Nathan, there will be consequences for this sin. The sword will never depart from your house. And in David's mind, you have to be thinking, well, the baby died, and so that's it. Because he has no idea the scope of the ripples of this thing and how it's going to continue out down the line. But we're going to start seeing that play out in chapter 13. First, his oldest son, Amnon, or Amnon, depending on how you want to pronounce it, I've heard it both ways, will rape his half-sister Tamar. Amnon is the crown prince, okay? He is David's firstborn by his second wife, Ahinoam. He is the one who should be the next in line for the throne by royal lineage. He is the crown prince, the top of the heap, you know. And so he is, well, let's just pick it up in chapter 13, verse 1. In the course of time, and we've seen that phrase in 2 Samuel, 1 Samuel before, it's once again signaling that this was not the next day, but in the course of time, Amnon, son of David, fell in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, son of David. Amnon became so obsessed with his sister Tamar that he made himself ill. She was a virgin, and it seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. So Amnon just kind of falls in lust, for lack of a better term. Time has passed, but even though time has passed, these ripples, these consequences are still coming. Amnon thinks he is in love with his half-sister, and he's really in lust. And obviously, but that's where I want to start this morning, because I think especially our younger folks are still figuring out that difference. How do you explain to somebody the difference between infatuation and real love, or love and lust? Amnon thinks he is in love with his half-sister. Now, I would say, obviously you're not, but I want to hear from you. What do you think? How do we differentiate? How do we explain to somebody how to differentiate between desire, attraction, and actual love? Jason?
Well, I don't believe I really know how to explain it, but I just want to say that at that point in time, when a man thinks he's in love with this woman that kind of knows he's actually in love, he can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
I've been there.
He can't tell the difference, and he probably can't be told.
Exactly. He won't, he won't take no for an answer. Oh no, I'm in love.
Which is a good point, because once again, that's why we should be teaching this, whether it's through youth group or Sunday school or I don't know, we can quibble about what level, but we should be teaching this really on all levels, because trying to make that decision right then is impossible. There's just, it ain't going to happen. But, okay, so somebody else. Yeah, good point, till you get older. Gene?
Passion will blind you to common sense. But love expresses common sense in the care that you show to the other person. You look to their needs where passion looks to what you want.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good observation, and it's very germane to this situation. And I'm going to paraphrase it just a little bit. Gene said that passion is more, and I'm going to rephrase it a little bit, but tell me if I'm wrong, is more self-centered. Whereas true love, you're more worried about the needs of the other person. Is that fair? And I think you see that here. Amnon is only worried about his own gratification. He is not in any way thinking about the repercussions of what effect this will have on Tamar, what effect this will have on her life, how she will react. She is simply an object to be used for his own gratification. And I think that is a key difference, in that he thinks he's in love, but he's not. And once again, how do you have that conversation in the moment? I don't know that you can. Let's keep going with verse 3. Now, Amnon had an advisor named Jonadab, son of Shimeah, David's brother. Jonadab was a very shrewd man. Now remember, I told you the Bible is not given to overstatement. And so like when you hear it describing Bathsheba as very beautiful, you got to think like drop dead supermodel, kind of gorgeous, because the Bible doesn't say that about many people. When it says he was a very shrewd man, that's some of the same verbiage that's used for the Satan figure, the Satan figure that pops up in the Old Testament. Is shrewd, wise, cunning. So he's not saying that this is Satan, but he's saying Jonadab is swimming in those same pools. Clever, yes. And And you'll see it throughout here. He's going to scheme from every angle. He asked Amnon, "Why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Won't you tell me?" Now, he's hanging around. I think he probably knew the answer, but he needed to hear it. Amnon said to him, "I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." Now listen to Jonadab's advice. "Go to bed and pretend to be ill," Jonadab said. "When your father comes to see you, say to him, 'I would like my sister Tamar and come and give me something to eat. Let her prepare the food in my sight so I may watch her and then eat it from her hand.'" This guy's just gross. He's just like the slick, you hear what he's doing. "Go lay down in your bed and pretend to be ill, and we'll send for the king. And when the king comes," no, you don't call for your sister. You have the king direct your sister to come give you this food in your bedroom alone. I think there's something to be said here, because this is I guess technically his cousin, the son of one of David's brothers, and he comes up with this really sick plan. You've heard the quote. Sorry, I just had a brain fart. I'll explain it later. It takes a lot to throw me, and Mark Taylor's one of the few people that can do that. Anyway, you've heard the quote, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future," right? Have you heard that? This guy is such an awful influence, such an awful advisor, and I think I want to talk about this morning just a little bit. Why is it important, or how is it important for us to surround ourselves with friends and advisors that offer godly counsel or good counsel, rather than feeding into our own desires? I mean, Amnon tells him this, and at that moment, Jonadab can go any number of ways. Amnon, "I'm in love with my half-sister." At that point, Jonadab, there's a number of scriptures he can quote, from Leviticus, the law that talks about what you shouldn't be doing, but he doesn't. He starts to knit this conniving plan together, and Amnon is so caught up in his own lust that it sounds good to him. And I think we've all seen or lived examples where we have friends, we have advisors, we have people that we trust that are not necessarily giving us godly advice. And it's real easy to follow down those paths. So how do we weed that out, though? Because again, when you're talking to young people coming up, I mean, as we're older, we kind of choose our friends a little bit more than we did when we were younger. But when you're younger, well, they're my friend because we're in the same class or we're on the same team, but we're still giving them this. So how do you tell somebody? We tell our kids, choose your friends wisely. But how do you do that? It's rough? Absolutely. Tony? Oh, trust. I thought you said it's rough. Go ahead. Ooh. You set the example by the friends you choose, and you create your circle. Is that birds of a feather flock together? Okay. See, that's you just touch. That's just. I'm just kidding. But a kid would. You might want to let your parents help you decide. So parents might actually know something. I don't know. I'm not sure if we can. That one might be a harder sell, because I don't know anything according to mine. What else? How do we do that? How do we keep good counsel in our lives? I think it is tough. I think there's also the counsel you listen to. If Amnon would have in the moment said, "Dude, what's wrong with you? Why would you? Where are you coming up with that from?" You know what I'm saying? He had the opportunity. He had the agency. He could make his own decisions. This is not a child. He's living in his own house apart from the palace. He's obviously an adult. And so, you know, he had the ability, if somebody comes up to you and is whispering in your ear, you know, plans like this, and Amnon had the ability to go, man. So I think you can sort of trace that back to what had Amnon grown up witnessing? A dad who's kind of disconnected and who's kind of focused more on other things. Is that fair? And who had not, I mean, you read this story and it sets up a lot like Bathsheba, you know? He's laying around in his bed, he's bored, and he gets obsessed with something, and so now I want it, and then after he gets it, he's going to throw it away, just like David did. But it's very similar. And well, let's keep moving. Our friends do influence our habits, our energy. Go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting how when we have children, my focus changed. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't near as discerning before I had children. Is that just me? I mean, I had kids, and there were even. You can always tell when I'm about to say something I shouldn't, because I'll stop and look at that camera because I know it's going to go out on the internet. There are even members of my family that when we had children, I had to say, I love you and we're blood, but that doesn't give you the right to access my children. And I'm sorry, but your lifestyle and your choices are not going to be appropriate. And it's hard because you don't, but I'm a lot more discerning as a parent than it's kind of like you can do whatever you want to me, but, right, Jane? Oh. You don't realize how much evil there is in the world until you have kids, is what he said. And you're absolutely right. And I would even argue how much evil in the world and then how much evil there is in my imagination. Because my kids will tell you the stuff that Dad thinks is going to happen to you is worse than what most of the time. You're so overreacting or whatever. But, because that's exactly. And once again, where was David in all this? I mean, I think there's a lot. It's not just his attitude. I think God never endorsed multiple wives. That's nowhere endorsed in the scripture or commanded, or it's something that's cultural, that is tolerated, but it's not really, something where God said, yeah, go out and have as many wives as you want. But I think you also find that father spread very, very thin. because you've got all these different households. I mean, look at the way they talk about each other. He says, I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Because he's trying to create that little bit of distance in his mind, to make it okay. Instead of my sister, and we know from reading between the lines, Amnon has his own house, Absalom has his own house. We don't know whether Tamar lived in the palace or whether she, because she is a virgin daughter of the king, she would probably still live in the palace. But I mean, that's a probably. We don't know that for a fact. Anyway, let's keep going. Verse 6. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to him, I would like my sister Tamar to come and make some special bread in my sight, so I may eat from her hand. David sent word to Tamar at the palace. There you go. Go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare some food for him. So Tamar went to the house of her brother Amnon, who was lying down. She took some dough, kneaded it, made the bread in its sight, and baked it. Then she took the pan and served him the bread, but he refused to eat. Send everyone out of here, Amnon said, so everyone left him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food here into my bedroom, so I may eat from your hand. And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom. But when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her and said, come to bed with me, my sister. No, my brother, she said to him, don't force me. Such things should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing. What about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? What about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. Please speak to the king. He will not keep me from being married to you. But he refused to listen to her, and since he was stronger than she, he raped her. When she arrives and prepares the food, he takes her. And it's interesting, the reason this is translated rape where Bathsheba is not is because there is violence in this one. The word that is translated that is the same word that's used to subdue a city when the military takes the city. So that's why the translators made that jump. If they translate it literally, it would say something like, since he was stronger than her, he subdued her. Well, we all know that's not what it means, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can see why the translators made that jump. But then immediately after in verse 5, he is done with her. He's gotten everything he wanted. And verse 5, he hated her more than he had loved her. And is that 15? I'm sorry. I can't see. 15. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred, in fact. He hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, get up and get out. Why is there such a thin line between desire and disgust? What do you say? Embarrassment. Okay, I buy that. I mean, she was all he could think about just a little while earlier. And as soon as he has fulfilled his desire, look, he's even going to refer to her when he calls his servants to kick her out. No longer is he referring to her as my sister or my love, or it's get this woman out of my sight. And you can see how it just goes to just disgust. Norma? Ooh. Reality hit. And I think it's everything we're talking about. I think Jason's embarrassment. I think it's reality. Amen? Shame. Absolutely. Right. That's one of the ways that you discern true love, because you shouldn't have all those feelings. you know, the shame and the embarrassment and the washed with reality. We'll go Ann and then Melissa.
Maybe one of the reasons was that once he got what he wanted, he didn't care.
Because he hadn't really cared in the first place. Once he got what he wanted, he didn't really care anymore. And yeah, and he's shifting the blame on her and get this woman out of here. Melissa, what were you going to say? And exactly, he didn't love her. He was lusting for her, and once that was satisfied, he had no need for her anymore. She was tossed aside, and I think that's what we see. He says, "Get up and get out." No, sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you've already done to me. Well, what does she mean by that? I mean, what he's done to her is a pretty great wrong. So she seems to suggest that sending her away would be worse. Why? He has taken something very valuable. Go ahead. Could be. Yeah, it definitely, I'm sure, did not go the way it had in his lust-clouded mind, and maybe he figured out he wasn't as irresistible as he thought he was, and that this wasn't going to end the flowery romantic way it did in his mind. I don't know, absolutely. So I heard some other answers over here. Why is sending her away worse? She was ruined. No one would want her. Absolutely. Remember, we've talked about this before. We can't put 21st century values on this. I mean, this is not even first century. This is before. And in that culture, her value is that she is a virgin princess. And her value is that she will be able to be married off to some other foreign dignitary, and that's what princesses were for. And now that's not going to happen because she has no value anymore. She's used merchandise to put it crudely, but that's I mean, you're going to see she's going to spend the rest of her life desolate in Absalom's house because he's the only one that'll take her in. She is ruined, and even for her to marry her half brother would have been better than to have been sent away. Even with all the stigma and all the baggage that's going to carry, that would still be better than for her to be sent away. And so he refused to listen to her. He called his personal servant and said, "Get this woman out of my sight and bolt the door after her." So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. She was wearing an ornate robe, for this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the ornate robe she was wearing. She put her hands on her head and went away, weeping aloud as she went. She's wearing an ornate robe. That phrase is translated elsewhere in the Old Testament as a coat of many colors. Sound familiar? Joseph, yeah. The favored child. It was a cloak signifying, you're not going to work in this. That was one of the reasons his brothers got so angry with him. You're not out here to work. You're the pampered prince, and she is the princess, and so as such, she is wearing something that signifies that, and so that signification is why she tears it, because what that signified is gone in her mind, and she's desolate, she's worthless, she's her name Tamar means fruitful. it has to do with like the fruit trees, fruitful, and she will never be fruitful if she finds a man to marry her at all. It goes from her being this, top valued commodity in that culture to being worthless because of her half brother's lust. So not only has David lived out of line, but he's also living out of touch. He doesn't realize any of this is happening. He's going to hear about it in just a minute, but he is so out of touch. He doesn't know any of this soap opera is going on within his family. And I think once again we come back to is this cause or effect that the father is so disconnected, and we see all this going on. The father is living out of line, he's living out of touch, and I think the question I'm asking is, today, how do we as fathers have the same responsibility to live in such a way that demonstrates, not just says, demonstrates godly living to our children? And because it's got to be more than, David still got up and went to the temple. There wasn't a temple, but to the tabernacle. David still got up and went to worship. And so going to church is not enough. How do fathers nowadays, what responsibility do we have to live in such a way that demonstrates and not just speaks about our values and what's important to us? Did I not ask that well? Y'all are all looking at me like, what? You got to walk in the light and with Jesus and show your children that that's the way to go. I saw another hand. Miss Sally. Words are cheap, but actions, say the last part, carry weight. Absolutely. And, when we had daughters, I had a mentor of mine, and one of the things that he told me is that a father is modeling for his daughter what a man's love should look like. Whew! Now you carry that weight, put that on your shoulders, because you start thinking about, and that hits me, because I'm not perfect. I snap at my kids, or I'm too angry or too loud or too something all the time. And that hits you because I walk away and there's a little voice in my head going, do I want a man to talk to her like that one day? And that gets my hackles all up, because I get all daddified. And I don't want that. So why is it okay for me to do it? And one of the things that we had to learn early on is that I wanted to model for them actually owning when I mess up. I don't think I can remember my dad ever apologizing to me. But sometimes I have to say to them, look, the way I spoke to you was not okay. And there are things we need to talk about this situation, but it's not okay for anybody to speak to you that way. And so I'm sorry. And because I can't undo what was done, but I can still try to model that behavior. Now, so I'm not always going to get it right, but that's a lot of weight. What else? How do fathers today have? And maybe I'm fishing for more than's actually in the pond. But how do we have this responsibility to, or what do we? How do we do that? Maybe is what I'm asking. Maybe I'm not just asking how do we have the responsibility, but Miss Sally's right. Words are cheap. How do I do that? Huh? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That it's more than just what I say. It's how I live, and kids pick up on that, and they're going to see that, and that's going in as a lesson, whether I want it to or not. Chris. Ooh, yeah, we're back to this. That's where we started in this chapter. Go ahead. Mm. Absolutely, absolutely. It's the company you keep, is what he's saying. And back again, once again, to Amnon and Jonadab. That these what kind of group am I running to? What am I listening? Amanda, and then I'm coming back to Gene. Every day. Absolutely. Every day, how I carry myself, how you speak to your wife, how you handle yourself in public and in private. How do you, it's every day. Gene?
Amnon is a son of David, and this story falls right on the heels of David's similar act.
Mm-hmm.
So David set a bad example for his son to follow. And I look at these things, and this emphasizes or reinforces what you were saying and everybody else is saying about the example set. And how, as a father, you show your daughter how a woman's supposed to be treated.
Mm.
Whether you're showing her the right way or not, that's your responsibility to do that. And if you look at the cycle of abuse that's around us in the world, you see husbands who abuse their wives, they beat their wives, and then the daughters grow up and marry somebody who beats them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've seen that as the model of manhood. And it just perpetuates.
Perpetuating cycle. Absolutely. David is once again living out of line. He is modeling this behavior, and this again looks very, very similar on purpose, I believe, to David's actions with Bathsheba. Amnon is just emulating what he'd already, if he hadn't seen, at least heard about. That had to be the talk of the palace. You know all the back action and the gossip, and you know that had to have been talked about, and so whether he had seen it, whether he had lived through it, or whether he had just heard about it, once again, and so okay, let's keep going. Her brother Absalom said to her, "Has that Amnon your brother been with you?" That tells me right there Amnon has not been as good at hiding this as he thinks he is. Because you walk around the corner and your sister's walking down the hallway and her robe is torn and there's ashes on her head, and your first thought is, be quiet for now, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart. And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, a desolate woman. In her mind, her life is ruined. Her life is over. And even the men in her life, the one who cares about her, her brother, his best advice he's got for her in that moment is, don't take this to heart. And David's not a victim in this story. Amnon's not a victim in this story. Absalom's not a victim in this story. But Tamar is a victim in this story. And we, like Absalom, don't always do a good job at comforting those who are struggling, whether it's something like this or whether it's whatever. You know, and just like Absalom, we don't know what to say. Hey, don't take it to heart. And you're like, really? That's the best you got? Now you know this got to him because of everything that happens next. But when King David heard this, verse 21, when King David heard all this, he was furious. And Absalom never said a word to Amnon bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. And once again, out of touch, out of line, David is furious. Big deal. I mean, really. There's no teeth to it. So what? David's mad. Ooh, what's he going to do? Give me a stern talking to? I mean, really. That's what you see here. Nobody's worried that David's mad. The Bible just tells us when David heard it, he was furious. But no, do you know the young David that we saw in 1 Samuel? If that David's furious, what happens? That's how he marries Abigail. He takes a whole herd of guys and they go and they're going to kill this dude because he disrespected him. It's not the same guy, right? David's furious, so what? Nobody's worried about it. Absalom, though. Absalom's fury has teeth. Absalom is going to burn with hatred for 2 years. This dude, you want to talk about shrewd? Absalom is not just angry, he is patient. Talk about holding a grudge. He doesn't say anything to Amnon from that point on. The crown prince of Israel, he does not say a word to, good or bad. 2 years he's nursing this grudge. 2 years of his sister living in his house, being reminded every day. Every day. It never leaves him. For 2 years. He has to hold on to it. Verse 23. 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep shearers were at Baal Hazar, near the border of Ephraim, he invited all the king's sons to come there. Absalom went to the king and said, your servant has had shearers come. Will the king and his attendants please join me? You got to understand, this is a festival type atmosphere. When the shearers come, it's a big deal. And they make a big thing out of it. And they kill the fatted calf and they have a big thing. And it's like the whole community is built around managing this royal's flocks. So it's think county fair kind of thing, okay? And so you want a dignitary, you want the king to come down. So come on down because I've got shearers coming. It's not an unusual request. No, my son, the king replied, all of us should not go. We would only be a burden to you. Although Absalom urged him, he still refused to go but gave him his blessing. Now that looks like, once again, David's like, I ain't going to that, you know. But it's more than that. He's saying we don't want to be a burden to you if all of us go. Because he's coming with himself and the royal court and the soldiers and the attendants. And you with me? This is, don't want to be, if the president decides to come visit Huntsville, there's going to be roads shut down. There's going to be preliminary teams that come in and do. It's the same thing. It's not a simple thing. It's not just like, hey, Dad, come over to the house. It's not like that. And that's what David's saying. I don't want to be a burden to you. You've got enough going on with all that without the whole royal court showing up, and you have to deal with that fiasco as well. No, I don't think that's a good idea. But that's never been Absalom's plan. Then Absalom said, verse 26, if not, please let my brother Amnon come with us. The king asked him, why should he go with you? But Absalom urged him, so he sent with him Amnon and the rest of the king's sons. If the king can't come, what's the next best thing? The crown prince. So we can't have the king, but we can have the future king. Have him come in your stead. It's a weird request, but not totally out of the realm of possibility. That's why he's considering it. Why would you have him come? Absalom invites the whole family, but he's pretty much counting on the fact that the whole family's not going to show. And he is laying his trap. He's been plotting this trap for 2 years. He has been biding his time for 2 years. He has been looking for an opportunity to get what he wants from Amnon, and I think escalating. I think every day when he watches Tamar cry, every day when he sees her not living up to her name of fruitfulness, every day it just stokes that flame and it just keeps going. And it just keeps, whereas at the beginning he might have been satisfied with some biblical justice, which would have been Amnon would marry her or he would pay the bride price, and that's what the scripture says, and that should have been his punishment. He doesn't get any of that. He basically gets away scot-free. Nothing happens to him. And that is consuming Absalom. And so he's plotting, he's planning, and we're out of time. So that's where we're going to stop for this week because we're right there. He is ready to spring his trap, and we will spring that trap next week. So thank you for your participation. We got about 13 minutes, and we'll be back in here for worship.
In Texas terms, sheep sure things come like a river.